All right, everyone, welcome back into another fantasy golf video. Going to be breaking down the Valspar Championship for both PGA DFS, but also betting. And I will say this week is presenting a lot of interesting spots. I do think it's a little bit more difficult really than last week, but that's also where the upside is going to come as well. So we'll break that down. But first, we're going to get into a quick recap from last week. So jump into that recap from last week, guys. We did not hit a first round leader. We did not hit an outright bet, although in the round 4 video, I did mention, you could potentially jump on like JJ Spawn, Rory, and even Patrick Cantlay as a guide to live bet. Hopefully you guys were able to use that information and jump on Rory at 6.5 to 1 if you didn't already have him as an outright bet. The bad from last week was really Hideki and really his first like 6 holes. Other than that, I would say it was a pretty solid week, especially in terms of like the expectations for the weekend, in terms of setting up the week correctly for how it would play out. I would say last week basically went as you would expect or should have expected. The best part about last week was the leverage we were able to gain by being underweight on Michael Kim compared to the field. I mentioned a bunch of great pivots. My 2 favorites were Jake Knapp, who I had listed as a higher ranked player in the 9-5 player pool, then Alex Smalley, who was the other player that I mentioned a bunch as well. Both those 2 were really strong pivots, and they both provided a lot of upside because of that. Thought we were going to get a bad beat with Alex Smalley top 20, which would have been kind of staying on par with the year, where a golfer on the 18th hole hits a ball into the water, which he did, and then ruins either a GPP or placement bet for us. That has been the theme. But actually, Sunday was a very solid day in terms of like running well. Okay, Siwoo Kim made an eagle on 18, which really shifted the week for me. Hopefully for you guys as well. Alex Smalley was able to hit for us with a top 20 at 4.5 to 1. But basically last week, guys, ended up being somewhat of a push week. I know a lot of people were able to get 5 out of 6 across the cut line, ended up having a pretty solid week. A decent amount of people were able to get 6 for 6 across the cut line as well. Jason Day was kind of the annoying part of the week. Thankfully, he did withdraw before the tournament started, but that was also pretty annoying. And just kind of looking at the player pool as well, yes, Hideki was kind of the bad play who ended up missing the kind of the number. I don't really have any regrets about that. Kind of mentioned that as the week progressed, ended up mostly, I don't want to say fading Michael Kim, but we did get to him less and less. It kind of seemed like the obvious pivot when we were getting Alex Smalley and also Jake Knapp, who were very stellar plays. In terms of cash plays as well, only 1 miscut there, Hideki again. GPP wise, I think you guys can pretty much see spot on why those golfers were listed as GPP only plays. They're all kind of the same player. We saw the upside from Willie Z, from JT, a little bit of Allenberg, and then you also had Corey Connors, who had one really good round there as well. And then Key, like kind of your prototypical GPP only plays. Now I know a lot of people probably pivoted to Jason Day or to Corey Connors from Jason Day in cash, but I guess in a weird way, I got lucky that he had that upside week, but overall I get it. But yeah, last week ended up being more of a push week, I would say, in the sense that nothing big, nothing terrible as well, whether it be betting wise, basically a whole push on the week, a little bit lower with the first round leader and outright bets not hitting, but Alex Smalley giving that top 20 helped. Slight tiny profit in head-to-head 3-ball bets, like literally like 0.5 units there, and then slight profit with a pick 6 bet that I gave out, cashing as well. So very limited stuff there, very much a push week. Looking at this week, it could honestly end up being the same, guys. Just looking at the event, the course is going to play a little bit longer than it has in the past. We look at some of those like past results here. We're seeing more random golfers somewhat win, except for, I guess you could say, Sam Burns and Paul Casey winning it the years that they won it. Not too random. Adam Hadwin was playing good golf there as well. But really the last 2 years, somewhat more random there. Peter Malnati and also Taylor Moore. Taylor Moore is probably going to be someone that we're looking at here as well. But when we're looking through the data here, guys, it's a lot like last week where we don't have any great options. And so what I mean by that is if we go into the 9-to-5 data tag, guys, we're going to have 1 player that's listed as a core play. This kind of just already tells us the expectations for the week, the setup for the week. Will it be a week in which we can expect some variance with it? There's only 1 player that's kind of checking all the boxes. He's a golfer that barely ranks out as a top 30 stat fit. So like last week, I think we are going to be expecting a little bit of randomness to it. We'll see how many good outright bets that we have. We have 2 good outright bets on paper here as well. This is just a measure of, well, let's go back to the data tag. The data tag kind of breaks it down in terms of which golfers are safe plays, traditionally speaking, based off of previous year's data. What would make a core play? What golfers are most likely to make the cut and also pay off a good finish pretty much. That'd be a core play, and then it's just scaled down to what golfers we should be fading, okay? And then for outright bet, it's going to be the same stuff, but we're just looking at golfers that win. And so golfers that are good outright bets are golfers that meet the 80% or higher in terms of checking those boxes of traditional winners of previous seasons. And we have two. We have Sepp Straka and Tommy Fleetwood. Okay, so interesting there as well. And for what it's worth, we'll go ahead and take a peek at which golfers have local ties. Not that many here. And those golfers are Kevin Roy, Jackson Suber? Jackson Suber. It's got to be that. I gotta look at the pronunciation, guys. Apologies there. Then we also have Nick here as well, who I'm not actually familiar with too much here. He's made 2 starts here. Interesting. So there are going to be a lot of golfers, though, that have made starts. Let me rephrase that. There are going to be a lot of golfers that are from the Florida area that, you know, we could look at like very likely. So a little bit further out, Danny Walker, who definitely going to be an interesting click, I would say. You know, a lot of people are probably going to want to get to him off of the week that he had last week. We could also look at golfers that are likely. That's obviously going to be just a lot of golfers that are just from Florida or play from Florida, you know, have local ties to the Florida area. So we're going to be looking at that as well. But with that, guys, let's go ahead and jump into the course history for this week. And so looking at the golfers that have the best course history, and what we're going to notice is that it's this really shows us how difficult this week is going to be as we kind of continue on through this process. We'll show you guys the stat fit and recent form. It does get a little bit ugly with what we're looking at. So we got Xander. We know the struggles Xander has had, you know, coming back from that slight back injury. Hasn't been as polished as we would typically expect Xander to be, obviously. Okay, he made the cut, but that was basically it for him. I think he's playing in this event because he needs to get some things going, and I hope that he does. As probably the number one Xander guy in the fantasy golf industry, I really want him to get going. I can't really get on him, I think, this week. Now, could he correct? He could. I'm almost willing to wait and see. And if that results in him winning an event where I'm not on him, I'm kind of okay with that. And hopefully it just gives like a top 15 place finish. We can be guns a-blazing with him in the next event, but he does have the best course history here. And then Tommy Fleetwood, then Victor Hovland. Okay, so Victor Hovland has had his struggles as well recently. So that's Ugly Cage. Lee's popping up in there, who also been a little bit terrible recently. Sam Burns. Sam Burns is in poor form. JT, I think we're going to be fine with JT, but he is the highest priced player on the slate for a reason. And then Ben Griffin coming in off of 2 missed cuts, I believe. And then, yeah, it just gets pretty poor there. No golfers are checking all the boxes, as I already mentioned. We'll jump into the golfers that are the best stat fits. And guys, it's a little bit of a weird week because we have golfers that haven't played that many events on the PGA Tour playing in this week's event, which is interesting here. So the key stats that we're looking at here, effective bogey to bogey ratio, which is going to be that combination stat of bogey to bogey ratio, but also bogey avoidance. With this being a harder scoring event, we always want to be looking at that bogey avoidance stat, golfers that are not going to be making many mistakes. And that's kind of the theme for what type of golfer we're looking at. We want those golfers that are just going to be playing good golf. They're going to be able to make the cut and thus provide us an upside finish. Smart golfers is who we want to be attacking. But we are looking at ball strike control, driving, par 5 scoring, but we're also looking at stroke gain approach as well, or greens and regulation. Both of those are going to be good stats to be looking at. We are looking at a lot of pretty stellar stat fits because of that. But there's a lot of golfers that, when you expand it out further, maybe not the best options. And that's really the theme that we are going to see this week. And so we'll jump into the golfers that have the best recent form. And so this should really paint the picture that I've been trying to create in your guys' head right now. Okay. Tommy Fleetwood is the best golfer for recent form. Jake Knapp is number 5. Jake Knapp has an average finish of 24th over his last 7 starts, which is fine, but Tommy Fleetwood is like 13.5, which is also not that good. And so, yeah, that doesn't really give us the warm and fuzzies, but we are looking at some golfers that do have some made cut streaks that we should be able to rely on here this week at this tournament. So it is kind of an iffy week, but at the same time, that I think is where we are going to be getting our edges because there aren't any great plays. This could be a week like last week where someone like Michael Kim becomes chalk just because everyone seems to get on him early. And that narrative that never really changes. I think that could be this week, but we'll wait and see for that maybe late Tuesday evening. Let's go ahead and jump into the high tier plays. And so I will say, guys, I do really think that the top end options are warranted, I should say. Like JT, it definitely makes a lot of sense. 64th last year, but then 10th place finish, 3rd place finish, 13th place finish, like all good stuff there from him. Obviously in pretty darn good form. I mean, over his past few starts, been pretty good. Had that one terrible round in round 1, but really Not even that. He had like 3 terrible shots in that round, which really hurt his whole day. That could happen here as well, but we just don't expect that as much. Not as big of a blow up as that. He was obviously able to bounce back pretty well there. A little bit risky, okay, to pay up for him at that price tag because, you know, those rounds are already in there for JT. That the bad one in round 1, but also the good one in round 2. So it is somewhat warranted. Again, I'm probably not getting to Xander too much, but Tommy Fleetwood is a player that I do think we want to be getting to here this week. He's just the golfer that's checking all the boxes. I think we can trust him at this point as well. So good course history, really good form. The one concern is going to be the stat rank, 30th in the field, but relatively speaking, that's not terrible. Okay, but if we get a bad week out of him, I think we'll look back at his stat rank, and that would be the indicator as to why he had a bad week. Like with Hideki last week, with Ludwig as well, like you knew that there was some risk with those 2 golfers, okay, because they weren't the best stat fits, especially like Ludwig, like pretty bad stat fit. And Hideki, it was just off the tee. You're worried about that accuracy being a factor, and it obviously was for those 2 golfers. That could be the case with Tommy Fleetwood, although I'm not too worried about that. From there, I do think Sepp Straka is going to be another warranted play for us. The one concern with him is that he's only made 1 start here over the last 4 years, and that was a miscut at this event last year. Besides that, though, great form, guys. Second best form in the field. Obviously been hitting the ball extremely well. He is going to be a golfer that I make as an outright bet. You know, 14th place finish last week, 5th the week before that, 11th. He's just been playing great golf. Missed the number at the Farmers, but other than that, guys, great golf there from Sepp Straka. Going to be a good stat fit for us as well. You take out that course history rank, and he's really a great option. So, yes, at 25-1, I feel pretty darn comfortable getting to Sepp Straka as an outright bet. I do feel comfortable with him as a GPP play. The question is, can we play him in cash? I don't know if we're already playing Tommy Fleetwood. And then from there, I do think Sam Burns, probably going to get a little bit of him. I'll probably be underweight on the field. The only reason why we'd be getting to him is going to be that course history. Again, hasn't exactly been hitting the golf ball all too well recently. Corey Connors, I do think, is going to be someone that we can mostly trust here, guys. Playing better golf recently. But at the same time, I still feel like he's a GPP only play. He's been a golfer that for years we could trust as a cash option. But lately, with his hit or miss nature, with him not showing up some weeks, I do worry that he could be someone that I view more as a GPP only play, especially at that price tag. And then from there, like Shane Lowry, I think is a good quality option as well. Not going to be the best stat fit, okay, but 5 straight make cuts for him. Made the cut at this event 3 years ago. He's just a kind of shoulder shrug play for me. If I end up on him, I end up on him. Although the 9-to-5 data does like him much more than I do. And I think it is warranted. Does play typically well in Florida. And then I do think Willie Z is going to be a quality option, 9 straight make cuts for him. No starts at this event over the last 4 years, and not going to be the best stat fit, but still top 50 in the field. Again, that's kind of the theme, though. We are making some sacrifices in some of the plays that we will be getting to. And then the last player in the high tier range that I could argue will end up being a decent outright bet is going to be Alex Smalley. So Alex Smalley, just really a strong stat fit across the board. Really, literally checking on the boxes stat fit wise. Number 1 stat fit in the field, guys, top 10 or better, and all the key stats that we're looking at. That should be no shock to anyone that watched last week. I think maybe it might have been shocking to some people last week when I was mentioning that, given the fact that he wasn't, again, chalky, even though his form was pretty darn good as well. It was kind of strange, right? You look at a golfer that had a 16th, 11th, miscut, 21st, 10th, and top 20, and he wasn't chalk for someone like, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but it was a little bit strange. Like, that was clearly a good leverage option using the exact same logic. And so it wasn't too shocking to see that top 15 place finish out of him last week, even though he gave it away. 2 water balls on the closing hole. Probably should have been a top 10 finish for him. He does have course experience here as well, guys. 2 missed cuts and a top 30 place finish. Pretty good specialist as well, relatively speaking. So through and through should be a pretty good option for us. I think the price tag is warranted, although I think he's a better outright bet more than I do a DFS play at 45-1. And then from there, we go ahead and jump on into the mid tier. We are going to get some decent options. So Michael Kim, for what it's worth, I think he's a fine option this week as well. Thought he was a fine option last week as well. Just missed on the number. Obviously missed a very, very short putt on 17. One that he should have made, I would say. Freaking 19 out of 20 times he probably makes that putt. Maybe there's a little bit of pressure. Honestly, I always worry about golfers like Michael Kim that start to get a presence on X or just social media in general, where they are communicating with fans a lot. Like, I feel like I was watching that putt and I'm like, man, if he misses this, like, I think that's the reason why he missed it, pretty much, is because of that. Like, thinking about the fans a little bit too much rather than the moment. I doubt that actually happened, but It is a thought process that goes through my head, so maybe it went through his head as well. He does have decent course history here, guys. Unlike last week at the Players Championship, where he wasn't that good of a specialist, didn't have good course history. He's made 2 cuts here in the last 3 years. I would argue he's a better option this week, and the data loves him much, much more than they did last week, even though last week he missed the cut, 73rd place finish, which data-wise is the most important data point. So that really tells us a lot of what we need to know about him as a play this week, that the data still likes him a decent amount, even after that missed cut last week. Then from there, I do think Lucas Glover is a fine GPP play. JT Poston is a player that honestly I probably overlooked in my initial kind of preview in my own head that I do before these videos. I think looking at him now, he does seem like a quality option, 6 straight make cuts. But the player that does really jump out to me is going to be Taylor Moore. So Taylor Moore is a golfer here that we can get at 55 to 1, a former winner at this event, followed that win up with a 12th place finish last week. So in 3 starts here, 12th, first, and missed cut. We'll take that. That's pretty darn good. Key stat-wise, guys, ranks out pretty well there. He does rank out top 10 in both total driving and par 5 scoring as well. Not making too many bogeys as well, ranking out 32nd in that effective birdie to bogey ratio, which again is a combination stat of birdie to bogey ratio and bogey avoidance. So really good stuff there from him. Top 15 play specialist, top 12 stat fit, top 10 in recent form. Quality play across the board. And I find it a little bit strange that we actually are getting him at 55 to 1. I don't fully understand it. Maybe it's just the fact that he is a defending champ in the sense that he's already won here. Maybe the books are saying that's not going to happen again. That's the best logic I could find, but pretty good stuff. I mean, you look over his past 7 starts, guys, 2 top 10 finishes mixed in here. I would say a fine week last week, 42nd at the Cognizant Classic as well. That's okay. A little bit of an easier field event this week. You could expect him to turn up for an event that he has done that before in the past. And then the last player in this range that I do really like as well is going to be Jake Knapp, who has just quietly been playing some really good golf. 7 straight made cuts on the PGA Tour now in a row, which is obviously really good. 6th place finish at the Cognizant, 12th at the Players Championship. The thing with these Florida events, like I love them, don't get me wrong, but they all kind of play the exact same, especially in terms of which stat fits you're looking at. Like the key stats are basically all the same for all the Florida events, which whatever. We'll take that. Makes my life easier, which ultimately will make your life easier. But the point I'm making there is that typically speaking, the golfers that we look at one week are typically the golfers that we'll look at the next week. Okay. And so Jake Knapp being a golfer that we've been looking at a little bit here and there, he's popping up again this week. So we do like him as a play. Look at, speaks volume. Look at his specialist data for location. Top 11 in the field in Florida-based events. So pretty darn good stuff there with Jake Knapp. Wish he had some course history to go off of. Again, we do want to be looking at that, but I think he's a very solid play at a very solid price tag as well. Now from there, guys, we jump into the low tier, which this is a tough range this week. Keith Mitchell is someone that you can talk yourself into a good stat fit again. Top 40 or better in all the key metrics that we're looking at. Should be able to make the cut. Missed the cut at the event last week, but kind of, oh well. We're not looking at any bad weather this week thus far, so maybe that helps him. Seabass was someone that missed the cut disappointingly last week as well. He's someone that I started on a little bit more than I ended up on him throughout the week. So, and that was just mostly due to build process where I just ended up on Aaron Rye a little bit more than Seabass, and then ended up going with those sub 6K plays a little bit more, which kind of lucky there, I guess. He is someone that I do think could bounce back, but we shouldn't be going too crazy with him. It's always interesting here. We see a golfer that's a top 10 specialist, but he ranks 90th in the field stat fit wise. That really just tells us the lack of good game his golf has been in thus far this year. So a little bit risky of a play. Really, the plays that I'm starting to think are good options are going to be these golfers that are really in the low 7K range. So like Joseph Bremlett, who's made 4 straight cuts here at this event, coming in with okay form, a 3rd place finish at the Puerto Rico Open, miscut, and then 35th, 29th. Like, I'm okay with that. I think that's pretty solid, especially given the field that we have. Max McGreevy, where 4 straight make cuts for him, miscut and make cut at this event, like not terrible. Traditional shoulder shrug play. Kevin Roy, gosh darn it, I can't quit Kevin Roy, guys. I think I'm going to be on him outright wise. Honestly, I probably will. He's just such a good stat fit. So key stat wise, guys, top 10 or better in all the key stats that we're looking at. Again, he's more of a Southern Tampa Bay type of golfer. So not exactly like having local ties. Like if you look at distance wise, he does. But if you look at like travel time to said distance, not so much, which is interesting there. That's kind of how I go about doing that. A little behind the scenes stuff there for you. But if he is on his game, I do think that could bode well for us. He already has shown us some upside. 6th place finish at the Puerto Rico Open, top 20 at the American Express, top 20 at the Mexico Open. So good enough there. I don't think he's going to win, but I really don't want to miss on a golfer that's that good of a stat fit that has played this course well. 12th place finish last year and then 89th. And the fact that we can get him 125 to 1 on PointsBet, I feel pretty decent about that. Like, I'm mostly going to be going top heavy outright wise, and then probably filling in with a couple of long shots because that's just kind of the week that we have, I think. Now, DFS wise, he's your quote unquote typical good GPP play. Okay. Now, on the flip side of that, I think Matt Kuchar is kind of the exact opposite play, where Matt Kuchar is probably a pretty darn safe play this week. Okay. But a golfer that isn't showing us much upside. So I think we can bank on him making the cut. Maybe it becomes a little bit of a sweat, but I think the bet would be on him to make the cut. And I think he gives us a good chance of that, making his cuts in his last 4 events. Like to see that there from him. Missed the cut the RSM Classic, which we know is an event where if you're not scoring, you're not doing too well, which for this week, not exactly going to be the case. You just need to avoid bogeys. You need to play smart golf. And I would say Matt Kuchar is a smart golfer. And so he's made the cut at this event the last 2 years as well. Not the best staff at only 65th in the field. That's terrible, but good specialist. You know, I think he gives us a good chance of a make cut. Sam Ryder, some of that I will begin to as well. 2 straight make cuts here at this event, 7 straight on the PGA Tour. Quality play. And then another player that I don't mind, Chan Kim, who was min price last week. Didn't make the cut, but he did finish much better than the min price tag that he was at. Actually had a pretty good chance at making the cut. Kind of fell apart a little bit in round 2. 92nd place finish, though. You know, again, a little bit of an easier field event. Don't have to worry about the wind as much as well, hopefully. And if that's the case, I think he gives us a chance at make cut. Good stat fit as well. Relatively speaking, considering his price tag, not terrible for him. So, you know, we'll take it at that price tag. I do think a lot of people are going to be getting to Danny Walker as well, and he has been impressive. He kind of has that look of someone that I would say is due to have a good year and maybe a career as well. Besides the last 2 events, though, not exactly great. He's actually someone that if he gets AMT time, I probably will bet him to first round lead. He is a golfer that can get it going early. And then it's whether or not he has a blow up round. Last week, he did not have a blow up round. Played extremely well. Top 10 finish for him. I do think we can chase that slightly. Then another value play that has been trending in the right direction. Quade Cummings, who, you know, overall, I don't think we're going to be expecting much from him really at all. But we look at the guys, 16th, 32nd, 32nd. 71st, which not terrible. We'd want a little bit more, obviously. 34th, miscut, and then 67th. So, like, good enough stuff. I would say you're not betting him outright. You're not even betting on him. But if you're looking for a value play, you know, to close out your build that gives you a decent chance at a make cut, I don't mind that. 95 days getting him an over 50% chance to make the cut. So don't mind him at that price. That's fine. And then just 2 other value plays I want to mention. Jeremy Paul, you know, fine play, I would say. Not a play that we need to go crazy with, but, you know, he's someone that probably should be able to make the cut. And then Ricky Castilla as well. I mentioned on the Puerto Rico Open, I kind of view him data-wise as a poor man's Kevin Roy, and that's just because he's a good ball striker, good total driver, not making too many mistakes as well. Overall, a pretty decent stat fit, especially in terms of the key stats that we're looking at. You look at the recent form, nothing crazy, like 73rd place finish last week, so not terrible. Miscut on the number at the Players' Championship. You give us that start this week, and you're making the cut. Puerto Rico Open, though, terrible. Had a terrible weekend. Constant class of 56, 50. Like, he just hasn't elevated his game. He's actually kind of descending a little bit, which we don't like. But at this price tag, you know, I do think we have a chance at a make cut, especially for a golfer that is a good stat fit, and especially for a golfer that last year finished 76. So, again, you slightly improve on that, and you're looking at not a terrible play. And so with that, guys, we are going to go ahead now and jump on into the core plays, and then we'll take a peek at the first look build. But first, guys, just leave a like on the video. That does help out a lot. Do appreciate that. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe as well. If you guys want to help out the channel grow, just leave an emoji with a simple thumbs up. That does help out the YouTube algorithm a decent amount. And then just as an FYI, you guys are looking to sign up, maybe potentially for a 9-to-5 membership. It is only $10 a month, gives you access to all the data that you saw in this video, as well as much more, including some prop betting data as well. Gives you access to the 9-to-5 lineup that I'll show you guys later on in this video. And so now we jump into the core plays here, starting out with Tommy Fleetwood, guys. So yes, I'm a little bit worried about the price tag that we are paying for Tommy Fleetwood. This is definitely a premium price tag, and he's only a golfer that ranks out top 30. That's the one concern, but we're going to have a week in which we have concerns with every single golfer. And so we're kind of willing to write that off, especially given the fact that Tommy Fleetwood is going to be a top 3 specialist as well. He's made 7 straight cuts in a row on the PGA Tour, with his last 4 finishes being all top 25 or better finishes, which this week we'll take. Good course history here as well, finishing 3rd and 16th. Overall ranking out as the second best pick in the 9 to 5 model. I don't mind him to win as well. You can get him at 16-1 on Bovada. Getting into core play number 2, not the defending champ, but a former champ here, Taylor Moore. And so Taylor Moore, you can get about 55-1 on FanDuel as an outright bet, and I do like that bet. Recent form has been pretty darn solid there with Taylor Moore making 7 straight cuts in a row with a 33rd, 42nd, 34th, and 9th place finish. If we go back a little bit further as well, we would see a top 10 place finish at the American Express as well, which we like to see. He's going to be the 13th best specialist in the field, overall ranking out as a top 5 play in the 9 to 5 model. And so given his price tag, I feel like he should be a safe play. And the only one bad data point that we really have coming in on him is this miscut at this event 3 years ago. And given the fact that he has went 12th and 1, we can kind of write that off. From there, we're going to be looking at Matt Kuchar, and I'm not going to tell you guys to outright bet Matt Kuchar at 150-1. That's really just to keep up with the consistency of the graphic here. But I do think he's a good play to be on to make the cut. Now, he's a golfer that I might end up on my main build, okay, and that's why I'm putting him here. I think there's a good chance that that does end up happening. GPP-wise, I probably won't get to him that much, and that's where there is kind of a weird part in PGA DFS. Matt Kuchar, pretty darn good play to be a safe play. Is he a great option to be someone that's in a GPP winning lineup? Probably not. Could be a player that leads you to profit, might not be a player that leads you to a GPP. Okay, that's the distinction I want to make with Matt Kuchar. Doesn't always happen every single week where we have a play like that, but that's Matt Kuchar this week. Good form, relatively speaking, making 4 straight cuts, made 2 straight cuts at this event as well. Not going to be a good stat fit, but overall good enough for us given the 7.1 price tag that he has. Now, core play number 4 is going to be one that I was saving for you guys here. Joel Dahmen. So Joel Dahmen, wow, right? I didn't really see this one coming. I do think he is someone that GPP-wise makes more sense there, and I think he's a better outright bet than he is like DFS play, but you can get him at 120-1 on FanDuel, 125-1 on Bovada. I'm comfortable getting there with him. He has made 3 straight cuts at this event, which is good enough. He's not a terrible stat fit as well. I should rank out top 15 in the field, guys, so we'll take that there from him. If you look at his recent form, he's went 54th at last week, which kind of surprising, had one really good round there. 32nd, 6th, miscut, and top 10 place finish. So he's playing better golf as well. I do think he gives us a really good chance at a made cut there. And so with that, let's go ahead and jump into the first look build with those core plays. All right, so if we go with those core plays, we're going to be left with about 8.5 left over for our average salary remaining. I mentioned I don't mind JT Poston. There's a lot of plays I think are good quality shoulder strike plays. I typically want to be targeting a golfer that does have course experience here, but maybe we could look at something like Jake Knapp, who has been playing some great golf, 9 out of 10 made cuts, showing on DraftKings. He's made 7 straight cuts now on the PGA Tour thus far this season. Pretty good golf from Jake Knapp. I'm fine getting to him. I kind of mentioned the Florida good golf that he's been playing, top 12 specialist in Florida events, so like that there from him. And we are able to afford to pay up for someone that's a little bit better. Again, I don't want to be targeting someone that's coming in off of a miscut. I think I would rather get to Alex Smalley here, but for the sake of the first look build, this will probably change, guys. But I actually think this makes for a quality build in general. And honestly, this is probably looking like more of a GPP build. So let's see who we can get to instead of like Matt Kuchar. Maybe go with Kevin Roy instead, who I mentioned Kevin Roy is a better GPP option, not a safe cash play. And so not a terrible build, especially key stat-wise. I'm kind of fine with this build. But that's the theme this week. We're not getting much safety. And I can almost guarantee that this build that I have here for you guys is going to be much different than the PGA DFS lineup that we're going to see here from the 9 to 5 lineup builder. And just as a quick FYI, guys, if you guys are in the 9 to 5 PGA DFS lineup builder, it is default into the Masters. So you got to click onto Valspar and that'll populate the data sheet. And so again, these are priority-based projections. So like the 2 players that we're going to prioritize the most probably GPP-wise are going to be like JT and Tommy Fleetwood. Got to give it 2 data points to go off of. We're going to click generate so you guys can see what the data is telling us is going to be the best lineup here in terms of upside, in terms of fantasy points. And so let's take a peek here. It's going to be Tommy Fleetwood, Taylor Moore, Jake Knapp. Okay, so right on par there. And then I would say get into more GPP plays. Like Keith Mitchell to me is definitely a GPP only play. Same thing with Nikolai Hogard as well. Definitely more of a GPP only play. But an interesting thing here is that we're getting to some of Doug Gim if we go a little bit further, Ben Griffin as well. So it is mixing and matching it a little bit. Let's see the exposures here. So does like Keith Mitchell a lot. Again, not getting to him that much, just showing you guys kind of what the path is that the data is liking here. So definitely getting a lot of Tommy Fleetwood. Let's take a quick peek at something if we do like just real quickly, just for fun. Let's lock in JT and Tommy Fleetwood. Okay, probably two of the safer plays, just out of curiosity, how ugly the build becomes, and not terrible actually. Okay, so I don't actually hate this path. I would probably switch it up a little bit, but not terrible with what it's kind of telling us to do there. So interesting thought there. But that's going to be all for this video. Again, guys, leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you guys have not done so before. If you guys want access to any of the tools that you saw in this video, again, head on over to 9to5sports.com. You guys can get access to all the tools that you saw in this video for just $10 a month, guys. Take advantage of that. It's the best value out there for fantasy golf. Take advantage of that great deal, $10 a month. That's going to be all, guys. Thanks for watching. Good luck. And as always, let's keep cashing.